Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Real Estate Success Podcast. I'm your host today, Jim Ingersoll, and I'm smiling because I got a good friend of mine on with me today, Ken Lacy from beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm going to tell you all about Ken and his history and all the great things he's done for so many people. But I want to welcome you back to our show. If this is your first time, I want to thank you for checking us out. Those of you guys that have been leaving us some reviews in iTunes and YouTube and comments on my website, or even just sending me a text thanking me for the podcast, you guys are all rock stars, and we really greatly appreciate you. We have a lot of gratitude for our listeners, and you guys are in for an incredible show today. Make sure you also go over to investingnownetwork.com, download your free gift that I've got for you on flipping houses. And I want to welcome the amazing Ken Lacy to Real Estate Success today. Ken, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jim. I appreciate you having this on.
All right. You and I have, it's been an honor to be able to hang out with you all over the world. So it's first time I think we've done it online.
Well, I think it is. I know it is.
So let's go back a little ways. A lot of our listeners are in the Financial Friends Network, of course, and they know you, but not everybody knows you like, well, first of all, before Vets Path Up, which I do, but all the way back to like when you were in the military. Let's kind of start there. What did you do for our country? I have a lot of gratitude for everybody who served, and we're coming past Memorial Day and right into the 4th of July. So thank you for your service, but start there with your story.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Didn't know we were going to go back 30-something years.
Hey, 30 years ago, you were 8 years old, so go ahead.
Well, yeah, right. So and from 85 until 93, I did 9 years of active duty time, and then soon thereafter, I did another 17 years of reserve time. When I first went in, I was on track for staying on nuclear submarines. And so my first tour of duty was 4 years on nuclear submarine out of Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
And I decided I didn't really want to stay on submarines any longer. So at the time, I decided I had been mentored by a Navy SEAL explosive ordnance disposal diver. He was a enlisted guy that went officer. And when I left the submarine, I did 3 years of security duty overseas. And that's where I met him, and he became a mentor to me, took me under his wing, and ultimately I decided to jump ship, so to speak, and get into the explosive ordnance disposal field.
Some people think real estate is risky. Ken, that sounds risky to me, anything with the title explosive.
Well, I still have all 10 fingers, so
good.
Must have done something right.
I think so. So what would you do? Dive down and find explosives, and what do you do?
Well, the short version is, you defuse bombs underwater. But the reality is that's a very dangerous thing to do, is to try to defuse a bomb underwater. So nowadays what they do is prosecute the explosive device. And that's getting the device away from the ship's hull as quick as possible. And the dampening effect of water when there's an explosion is great. So all we have to do is get the device away from the hull just a couple of feet. And when it explodes, if it were to explode, it wouldn't hurt the vessel. So we do what's called prosecution of the device. And that's really exploded in space in place is what you do.
Well, I really appreciate it. I've been reading, I love all the Navy SEALs, and I've read some books from them, and they're amazing people. I'm sure you would agree. And recently I read Extreme Ownership, which was an awesome book. You read it?
Oh, yes. It's a great book.
Wow.
Their story resonates with me.
I'm sure it does. And then he just came out with another new one called the Discipline Field Manual.
I'm going to have to.
Jocko did. I forget Jocko's last name. And it's a great book. It's incredible. If people are nervous about reading, I know some people are dyslexic. They have trouble reading and stuff. This book that he wrote is in really large print. And there's not many words on each page, but it's written so that every word is powerful. And the stuff I'm taking away, I'm just like, wow, he blows me away, whether it's talking about just getting up and getting going, or taking the first step, or refusing to eat a delicious donut full of glaze and sprinkles, or getting out and doing some exercises. I mean, it's a very motivating book.
Well, even extreme ownership.
It is.
So Jocko Willink,
That's him.
he said at the end, most people complain about not having enough hours in the day. And he said, the only place you can create more hours is wake up earlier. And
Right.
when you do that, you have to make sure you're eating well and exercising well and at the top of your game. And they take extreme ownership and accountability to the next level. Great
books, great guys, and I love everybody in the military. Thank everybody who serves. I really appreciate it, and include you, Ken, so thank you. And that'll tie back into the Best Path Up in a minute, but what did you do when you got out? Did you go right into real estate, or what? Did you work corporate America? I'm not really sure.
Well, as a reservist, you still have a civilian job as well.
Yeah.
And so towards the end of my career, I was a Navy diver in the reserve. So we basically worked under ships. And at the same time that I was a Navy diver in the reserves, I was a commercial diver at the shipyard as well. So almost the same thing I did in my civilian job, I was doing in the reserves as well. And I was living in Virginia Beach, Virginia at that time. And I got deployed overseas in an explosive ordnance disposal capacity. And when I came back, I needed to find a job. And that brought me to Charlotte. And I was in the telecommunications business and the software business for a few years, and decided it really wasn't for me. And I wanted to get into real estate. And I got in the discount note business. And involved in fixing and flipping. And I had partnered with a local real estate investor here, and we had developed a model of, and there's plenty of people that do this now, but we were acquiring very low price point homes. We were totally rehabbing them. We were putting tenants in them under property management and then selling those to turnkey investors. And these were all houses that we were picking up for less than $40,000 or $50,000. And then I started getting engaged with some of the veterans organizations in the area, and we started putting veterans in those homes. And that's how it sort of started. And that was a couple of years before we started Veterans Path Up. But that was what started the model.
I remember when you were going through that, and it was really exciting to watch. I mean, we were sitting on cruises and going to masterminds, and like your wheels are turning, and how can I make an impact? How can I help veterans? How can I help the homeless people? Tell us like how that sort of came about. How did Veterans Path Up give birth?
So for about the 2 years before we started it, I think I had helped about 35 veterans get into homes, but that wasn't homes that just the ones that we were rehabbing, because we weren't rehabbing that many. I was educating landlords and property management companies who normally would not give the veterans a time of day because of usually bad credit.
Right.
And when that was a deciding factor, but I would meet and pre-vet the veterans, if you will. And those are the veterans that we were helping into houses. And I realized that I could do a lot more if I created a nonprofit, whether it be getting properties donated to us by the city or the county, or even getting a tax-deductible property donated to us. And so it wasn't really something I really wanted to do, because I didn't know anything about nonprofits. What I did know was it would probably take 8 or 9 months to get one up and running. And I didn't really feel like I had the time to do that, but I really got pushed into doing it. And the truth is, I was struggling with that decision. And Wendy Sweet.
Of course.
I asked Wendy to sit down with me, and I just wanted to tell her all my troubles and challenges about moving forward with it. And she was like, well, let's pray about it.
That's awesome.
And that's what we did. And I really was not expecting the answer. And Wendy and I both got the same answer while we prayed about it at the back end of one of our Sunrisers Real Estate Investors Breakfast on a Friday morning, almost 3 years ago. And God said, you got to start Veterans Path Up. And so that's when I formed a 5-member board of directors, and we started Veterans Path Up. And 6 weeks after we put in the incorporation paperwork and the 501c3 paperwork, we got granted the 501c3 in just 6 weeks.
That is a miracle in and of itself. So it wasn't 6 or 9 months like you originally thought.
Right. So, and within 1 week of us having the 501c3, the first house was donated to us as well.
That is amazing. So tell us who the ideal veteran is that has damaged credit, becomes homeless, and that you guys are really looking to help. What is a story or something you can share with us about the impact you've made?
Okay. So the veterans that we are really helping are the veterans that have fallen through the cracks. There's plenty of organizations, there's plenty of government programs that help not just veterans, but people get off the street. But they sort of keep the veteran in the entitlement mentality, if you will. And we're not about keeping a veteran, bound by the fact that if we make too much money, then I'm going to lose this program from the government. So we're all about the final, getting a veteran 100% self-sufficient. So our prerequisite for veterans is they have to be honorably discharged with 2 years of service or more. And then from there, we've really come up with a model that a 3-to-1 income to rent ratio builds success into the program.
It's the same one I use as a regular landlord.
Right.
It's a good ratio and it does work. I agree with you.
It does, because before we put that ratio in, and we'll accept Social Security, disability, partial income, a voucher, all of those combined together to be 3-to-1 is really the success number, because before we started that, there was a high failure rate. And the reason the failure rate was so high was many of the veterans that were being referred to Veterans Path Up were not getting financial training. And even though these organizations would give them a month, 2 months, up to 6 months worth of subsistence, it wasn't coming with financial training. So when they were on the hook to pay the rent themselves, they weren't able to pay the rent. So now we contractually obligate the veteran to go through financial training classes. And since we went to the 3-to-1 income ratio, and we go down the road of becoming a good steward of your money, we've had 100% success rate.
That's awesome.
So that's what we do now. And there's plenty of veterans out there that, life decisions got them where they are, but they don't want to stay there anymore. And they want to get up on their feet. They want to provide for their families, and they know that the government is not the answer. And so that's what we're trying to do.
That is amazing. 100%. I love it. So the financial education piece, is that like budgeting type things typically?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Is it like you're helping them understand what their expenses are, what their income is, how to budget? What is the financial education piece?
So what I do is, because there's other organizations that do the financial training, and there's organizations that do down payment assistance programs. And to get into a government down payment assistance program or an assistance program that is managed by another nonprofit, you have to go through their financial training classes. So in that sense, we connect the dots relative to the veterans, because we at Veterans Path Up are centrally focused on the properties and the housing itself. So we connect the veterans with the organizations that do the training, and that is helps them get on their path and we're leveraging other resources to get them there.
And, I think that's awesome because a very high percentage of veterans are financially challenged anyways, right?
It is.
More than people realize. They serve our country. They give everything they've got for our freedom. And they come out and they have a lot of challenges.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the census numbers, but here in Charlotte with over 50,000 veterans, the numbers not long ago were 2/3 of all veterans are in some sort of financially challenged situation. And when you look at a pool of over 50,000 people, that's probably pretty close relative to the entire United States.
That is amazing. And so you guys help solve that problem. Now, if somebody wants to go check out your organization, it's veteranspathup.org.
www.veteranspathup.org.
And when you go there, you can learn all about their mission and see some of the videos it can and all of that, I suppose, right?
It's got some of the videos. It doesn't have all of them, but
right.
We're not real good at Facebook, but you're
improving.
We're trying to improve, and we're getting better.
I think Erin's doing a great job getting you there. I see a lot more visibility of you guys on social media channels than I used to. So that's awesome.
Yep. She's doing great.
So tell us about one of the veterans you've placed and what the story from sort of the beginning to the end was.
So let me start with the first veteran that inspired me to
do it.
Just get involved, but this was before Veterans Path Up.
Okay.
She was a single female veteran. She was an Army veteran. She had had a tour in Afghanistan, and she was back here in Charlotte. She had 2 jobs. She worked at the Charlotte Douglas International Airport, and she had another part-time job, and she had twin 5-year-old daughters.
Wow.
She had 2 jobs, twin daughters, and she was living in a women's shelter.
Wow.
And that really inspired me to get involved. And it proved to me that the root of anyone being successful is stable housing. And so once she got into a house, she flourished. I mean, she had a goal right off the bat that within 5 months, she was going to be able to quit her part-time job and go full-time at the airport. She just needed, how stable can you possibly be if you and your 2 little girls are trying to decide between staying in a women's shelter on any given night and sleeping in your car because the shelter is just not the place to be. And that was her main decisions at night, where she was going to sleep, whether it would be in her car or the house. The women's shelter. So that's what was the initial inspiration to get involved. Now, flash forward to our first veteran family that we got into a house. They came to us actually before I started Veterans Path Up. It just sort of overlapped into the creation of it. But when they first came to me, they had a 420 credit score.
Wow.
And they were couch surfing. They were sleeping on relatives' couches and friends' couches and what have you. And they had been homeless also. The veteran had a full-time job, but he had an off-the-job injury that wiped out all his vacation time, his medical time, and he ultimately, they came down on financial hard times. Well, I worked with their credit to start doing common sense things to help improve it. And when we finished rehabbing that first house, they were the ones that moved into it, renting the property. We continued to work with their credit. I paired them up with another nonprofit that got them into financial training classes. And at that time, the goal was they needed to be at a 660 credit score in order to get the down payment assistance program. So for 10 months, they rented the house, and 10 months later, they qualified for a VA loan, got their VA loan, got $15,000 of down payment assistance, bought the house, and they now live in that house today. And everybody in the family is employed, including their teenage son who works for a commercial contractor. And the rallying around from the neighbors and the community has just been amazing.
So you can go to veteranspathup.org and learn a lot about this and Ken's mission, and these stories are unbelievable. They're heart-wrenching. We're launching this podcast right at Memorial Day, so it's just like the perfect timing for me, Ken. So I really appreciate your sharing that. And that leads us up to Pave the Path, which I remember you and Ginger came to my boot camp here in Richmond, and it was awesome. You two are an amazing couple, by the way. And
thank you.
So Cheryl and I got to hang out with you guys, and the next thing I know, this Pave the Path was rolling. So tell us about Pave the Path, and it's an exciting 2-day event coming right up in July.
Well, Pave the Path is actually a testimony to you guys. I literally sent an email out to 13 of my closest financial friends, real estate speakers and people that are doing it, and with the exception of one person, everybody said yes to being a speaker at the Pave the Path seminar. The only person who didn't is actually one of my board members, and that was because he already had a committed obligation. But everyone said yes. And this Pave the Path seminar, I don't know if you know it, but you're only going to get 45 minutes because it is going to be such a compressed group of people with incredible knowledge, including Mr. Jim Ingersoll himself, and the value of all of the people. You've seen the list of speakers, and there isn't anything that anybody be able to. I can truly believe that there's not a question that anyone could possibly ask this group that somebody doesn't know the answer to.
I agree with that. Looking at the lineup, it's amazing. So in your website, it's July 13th and 14th. I hope our Success listeners come out to Charlotte and meet me. By the way, it's at Ingersoll Rand, which, being my name, Ginger's hooking me up there. I've never been to an Ingersoll Rand facility and always kind of wanted to. So I'm excited about that. And that's right in Charlotte?
It's in Davidson, which is just north of Charlotte. It's literally right on. It's almost on Lake Norman.
Oh, beautiful!
And it's just a beautiful campus. It's a secure campus. Ingersoll Rand is giving us their facility for 2 days, and they're actually even catering the first day completely at no cost to us.
That's awesome. So that's VPU pavethepath.sched.com, right? And Sched is like schedule, SCHED. And I'll have all that in my show notes, and I'll put it on YouTube in the little blurb below the video as well. So VPU, like Veterans Path Up, pavethepath.sched.com is July 13th and 14th. Tell me about some of the other speakers coming. I know we got Walter Walford, Quincy Long, we got Tom Olson, Mo Matthews, a whole bunch of guys, right?
That's right. There's a gentleman named Augie Bilot, and he's not part of the Financial Friends Network, but this guy is absolutely amazing. He's out of Orlando, Florida, and Augie is just an incredibly giving person. He is an incredible real estate investor, but one of his goals is during his lifetime to give to charitable organizations $1 billion.
Wow.
Is that pretty amazing?
Yeah, I love big goals. That's one it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, that's for sure.
I think that's pretty amazing. But, Walter and Quincy, we're going to let them double team. So, the act of Quincy and Walter. So they're going to double team. Bill Fairman and his sister, Wendy Sweet. A lot of people don't know their brother and sister. They're going to double team as well. But locally, for people that are local, Jeff Johnson.
Having said that, I think I've really got to entice my wife, Cheryl, to get up and double team with me. Don't you think?
I think so.
We all live outside our comfort zones. That would be okay.
Would this be the first time?
Yeah.
I think it needs to happen. But,
all right, so who else you got?
What's that?
Who else is coming again?
So you've got Mary Hart. You know,
yeah.
she's just an amazing real estate and lawyer.
I'm going to her wedding in 2 weeks, Ken. Can you believe
her
it?
wedding's in 2 weeks, but she's also taken Airbnbs and VRBOs to the next level.
For sure.
And she's going to be wowing people on, you know, if you want to get into, you know, the Airbnb business. You've got Gary Harper is huge for anybody who's implemented traction or the entrepreneurial operating system or automation of systemizing their business. He's the guy that people go to now. Larry Goins is the HUD guy. And Larry is amazing. You know what, Larry, when I called Larry up, this is what he said. He said, well, I tell you what, how about we make my programs available during the auction and I'll just donate 100% of the proceeds.
That's awesome.
So there's also going to be an auction on Sunday afternoon to wrap things up. And so one of the donated items I got was a signed football from Coach Rivera of the Carolina Panthers.
Wow.
And that should be very valuable to anyone in Virginia since y'all don't have a football team. Other than
awesome.
college.
Yeah, well, we have Washington, but they don't count. So that's all right.
But between you've got Mo Matthews in Richmond who's coming in and Tom Olson from Gary, Indiana, and Glenn Stromberg from Dallas.
Oh, good. Good mobile home on land guy. Yeah.
What's that?
He does a lot of mobiles on land. Glenn's a great guy.
Oh, Glenn's knocking it out of the ballpark right here in the Carolinas, too.
He's following Larry Goins' method, so it does work.
So maybe I should put Larry and Glenn together.
There you go. Team them up.
Well, that's pretty much so the lineup. Okay. Jeff Johnson has got a really amazing name for himself in the greater Charlotte area. He does amazing rehabs and incredible spec homes.
Hey, Ken, how are ya?
Good, Cheryl. How are you doing?
So we're recording our podcast, but my wife just stopped in, which is awesome, say hello to Ken, which is always good. Like I said, Ken and Ginger and Cheryl and I are friends, so it's all good. She didn't know I was recording, so that's awesome. But Ken, it is going to be great. I can't wait to get there to Charlotte, July 13th and 14th. The event is on vpupavethepath.sched.com, right?
Right. And if so, there's multiple things that are posted there. So you've got the Pave the Path brochure. You've got your ability to register. You've also got the optional Moonlight Cruise to register for. And there's also sponsorship availability. So if anybody would like to sponsor at any one of a number of levels and have the ability to speak as well, there's a 7-minute speaking slot and a 10-minute speaking slot.
All of this is for the veterans. And that's why I love the timing of this podcast, because we're headed right to Memorial Day. And then this is right after the 4th of July. I mean, let freedom ring and let's help some vets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can't thank all of the speakers that have volunteered to come in. I mean, in the middle of summer, right after 4th of July, to have this lineup commit to our veterans is just amazing, but it's a testimonial to the giving nature of our group of people. And I appreciate it.
Our networks, we share a lot of the same people in the network are all people of givers. Last week I had Bob Berg on my podcast. He wrote the Go Giver, Ken. Great show, but it's all about the more you give, the more you receive, and the more impact you make. And it's not just about money and finances and monetary. It's about living life to the fullest, having significance, making an impact. And that's what I love about what you do.
And I appreciate that. And I love the Go Giver book. That is an amazing book. And Tom Olson's having a Go Giver event 2 weeks after ours.
I'm going to be there too. So I'm going to be in Charlotte, and then I'm going to be down in Gary, Indiana.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Well, Ken, I respect your time, but thanks for what you do for the vets, especially as we head into Memorial Day and the 4th of July and celebrate our freedom the way that we are. you're helping a lot of people, and you are making a legacy and an impact. Everyone can go to veteranspathUp.org and check it out. Join me in Charlotte, July the 13th and 14th, and I'll see you guys there and get to meet you, and you can hang out with Ken and I and have a great time. Ken, thanks for being my guest today.
Thank you so much, Jim, and make sure Cheryl knows what you have in store for her.
I'll do that. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for this very special episode where we get to celebrate our freedom here in the United States in a very unique way, hearing about how Veterans Path Up is placing homeless veterans back into housing, creating stable housing and stable lives for so many people. That's what success really is all about, and I'm glad we got to focus on it today in our Real Estate Success podcast. Thank you, everybody. I'm your host, and I hope you have an amazing afternoon. See you guys later.